Good morning. My name is Nick Gage, CEO and President of the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our entire team, I'd like to welcome you to the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce's BizDev series of educational workshops. You know, the goal of our educational series of workshops is to inform and to educate our business owners and consumers on today's relevant topics of discussion that impact them both today and in the future. Today we're excited and pleased to have on our workshop series the founder of CLR, Catherine Leroy. So we're so excited to have Catherine with us today because she brings an incredible wealth of experience in talent management. Catherine is a seasoned professional with extensive experience in what only can be called a full cycle continuum of HR recruiting services that range from initial sourcing and screening through offer negotiations, placement, and onboarding. She has served in several prestigious organizations such as Lucid Motors, Google, Tesla, as well as Stanford University, just to name a few. Catherine has also served as career advisor at Holt International Business School, San Francisco campus for the MBA and Master's in Business Analytics students. Catherine holds a master's degree in business communications and public relations from European University and a bachelor degree in environmental conservation from the University of Colorado at Boulder. She also has her career coaching certificate from PARWCC. You know, having a chance to work with Catherine now for many months. Catherine's passion lies in empowering individuals to stand in the competitive job market. And in the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce is very proud to serve her as a member of our community and host for today's session. So with that, as a quick introduction, I'm going to hand over the workshop to Catherine to share her wisdom and expertise.
Wow, I don't even know what to say. Thank you, Nick, very much for the warm welcome and the introduction. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be able to talk about the recruiter's perspective, right? To what I call the recruiter's perspective to the job market or the job application process, and give some do's and don'ts to, applying for jobs, and et cetera. So we can get started. So the next slide, please. So my agenda for right now is, well, the introduction. I don't have to go spend too much time on that because Nick did such an excellent job. And then kind of go through what I call fun facts or facts that some people may or may not know. Do's and don'ts as well. Obviously, most of my presentation is going to be on the do's and don'ts, and we'll be giving examples of my, my past experience with clients and working in the companies, and going through, the resumes, the LinkedIn profile, the networking and interviewing. I will try to cover as much as I can, but I will definitely have any questions. I can answer any questions afterwards for sure. And then I have, the references if anybody needs any of the information. Next slide, please. Now, I don't have to spend that much time. Obviously, Nick talked a lot about myself and what and how I got into recruitment and what I'm excited. But one thing I wanted to mention is why I opened my business in coaching and recruiting. After all those many years of working in the tech field and in corporate America, my heart was really wanting to work with people in the process of them getting the position. A lot of the recruiters, and I will explain a little bit later in terms of the perspective of a recruiter, but my heart was always in helping the candidates, get, to how can I put this? To improve themselves, right? In interviewing and in their resume, before the hiring manager saw them. So I felt that my passion, is in line more with the candidate than in terms of the corporate. So hence, that's why I opened up my business and, been excited to work with my clients. All right. So some fun facts. I don't know how many of you know this, but recruiters spend only 6 to 9 seconds on a resume. Everybody that I talk to, even, before I was a recruiter, you pour your heart and soul on in your resume, and you think that recruiters read top to bottom every word. They don't have time. So what I tell everybody is to make sure that you make it easy to read, because recruiters, again, spend only 6 to 9 seconds, and it's your door to an interview, right? It's your way to get in. And if your resume is not reflecting your experience, and and after many years of working with clients and candidates, after talking to them and actually hearing about their experiences, I look at the resume and it's not reflective. They assume it's in there, but they're not seeing it. It's not mentioned. So people are not seeing it. And so that's, again, needs to be really point on about what's in the resume, and it has to be attractive. And I will explain a little bit later about that. A lot of people have gone into and using these, and what I mentioned in my second point is, if your resume is not converted correctly in the applicant tracking system, it will be rejected. And the reason why I say this is the recruiters are looking at 100 resumes a day. They don't have time to make sure that everything's working. And if they open up a resume and it's not working, if it's all, for example, the very common resume that everybody's using right now is the 2-column resume. And what happens is, if the applicant tracking system is archaic, very old, it's not going to upload very well, and it will just be, all the words will be squished up in the 2 columns, and the recruiters do not have time to email every person and say, oh, can you resend the resume? They will just literally click on to the next, resume, because they quickly have to go and screen over 100 resumes to pick out, 10 or 15 for the first round, okay, for interviewing. So that is very important, that you use very simple resume, not a lot of font, not a lot of color, because really recruiters are just scrolling and looking for the keywords, and the exact experience that they're looking for those roles. And I'll, again, go a little bit more in detail later. Another thing people don't understand is that recruiting and HR are non-revenue, right? So to think about it and put your recruiter hat on, you have to think like a recruiter. They do not have, and just so everybody knows, seeing that it's a non-revenue generating department, it's the least amount invested in the company, right? So the applicant tracking system, the software is usually very old. And also they're usually HR and recruitment is understaffed. So when I say that, it means because the recruiters are handing 25 to 50 recs, which mean our openings, and each of those openings, they're supposed to source all the resumes that are in there, come up with an interview team, interview every single one of them, make a decision on which ones they're going to move on. So when I say that, I'm not trying to, and the reason why I bring it up, because I know I'm not trying to glorify or try to have sympathy for recruiters, because I know in social media, recruiters get kind of bashed and saying, oh, I send my resume in, it's a black hole. I'm not getting a response. Well, there's reasons, right? And the first thing I tell people is, please don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with it. It's not personal. It's most likely they're overwhelmed. They're getting a lot of resumes. It's difficult, right? And another thing I wanted to point out, excuse me, is that recruiters are like, it's sales. And so I want people to know that there are goals that they are, set. They have data points that they have to reach. So for example, most recruiters have to hire a certain amount of people per month. Otherwise, they'll be not, they'll be on a PIP or something. So it is sales. They have to bring in a certain amount of people. Usually, when you're hiring, it's 25, 50 recs, you're supposed to bring in at least 10 or 15 people a month in those big companies. So it's high pressure, and they're screening for exactly what they're looking for, and they don't have a lot of time. So what I try to tell people is the resume, the LinkedIn is very key. Okay, that it's very important that you stand out and have the keywords. And again, I can go in a little bit detail a little later. And real quick, I want to mention, referrals work, right? Just don't hit the apply button, right? That's not going to happen. I can't tell you how many clients I've talked to, and they said, "Oh, I've applied to hundreds and hundreds of jobs." And I asked them, "Well, have you networked? Have you reached out to people in that company through LinkedIn?" Um, because to pull your resume and put it on top, you need to do your best to see if you can network within that company. And so there's a way to do that, and I can definitely talk a little bit about that. So next slide. All right, let's talk about do's. Okay. Do have your resume and LinkedIn in sync. A lot of people think, oh, LinkedIn, it's not as important. And I can tell you so many of my clients, when I review their LinkedIn page, it just, has the listing of their companies, but doesn't really have any bullets or any information, any data, sets about what they're doing. And it's critical because you have to think about in a recruiter perspective, how you're being presented, right? So either you're going to find a position via your resume, right? So that you're applying, or you are going to be seen by a recruiter. And the number one place that recruiters find people is in LinkedIn. And I wanted to mention a little bit about LinkedIn. Companies, it's really, really expensive, number one, to post roles in LinkedIn, but it's also expensive for access. For a company to have access to the to candidates or people in LinkedIn, they have to spend about 10 grand per recruiter for the access. Okay. It's very, very expensive. And recruiters, what they are doing filters, again, with keywords about the role. And also they're doing years of experience and looking for buzzwords. So if those words and experience are not in your LinkedIn, that you're not going to be on that short list of qualified candidates for that role. So that's why it's important. So like I mentioned before, it's either the resume you're applying, right? And they're going to see your experience and your skill in your resume, or they're going to find you in LinkedIn and reach out to you. So that's why it's really important that your LinkedIn is synced up with your resume and all has keywords and your skills and stuff. So, and I help, clients with that, because I find that people kind of struggle, as it's normal, right? To think about yourself. It's easy to help someone else, but when you're trying to do your own, it's really hard to talk about yourself or your roles. And that's where I step in and I pull that out and really bring in and elevate it for clients. Okay. I did mention the resumes do need to have the buzzwords, the keywords. And what I mean by that is, if you look at a job description, 4 or 5 job descriptions within, let's say, 4 or 5 companies, the same title, the job descriptions generally, if you look at them, have repetitive key buzzwords for that industry. Okay. Highlight those, look at the requirements, and then go back to your resume and see, am I covering that? Do I have those? It's really, really important. And of course, it means that you have to have that experience. Don't just put it in there. You really do definitely have to have that experience and skill set, right? To have that. So that's where I come in. I talk to people about what is the gap between the experiences they're needed and skills, and where you can bridge that, right? With maybe a certification or whatnot, and work through that. And I don't know how many of you guys know the CAR or PAR method. It's basically a way to what I call flesh out the information that are in, and you can look that up. It's basically a way to really take a sentence, for example, in your resume. The biggest, I would say, the biggest common factor that I see in most resumes is that the bullets under their experience is just like listing of the job description. It's kind of general, right? The whole point of the resume and in your LinkedIn, your bullets need to talk about your successes and what you did. Okay. So in other words, it needs to talk about, you know, um, it needs to talk about the situation or the, you know, the job that you were given, your action, right? In terms of what you did for that particular, you know, quest or the, how could I say, um, the work that you were asked to do. And then the results. The most important is um, talking about the results and using data. So did you increase efficiency? How many meetings did you put together? And the reason why I mention this is, for example, you have to, again, put on the recruiter hat and think, how can I best show my scope, right? So if someone says they're an administrative assistant, right, at a XYZ company, and they say that arranged meetings, and, et cetera. You don't understand the scope. Is this person local, right? Only handling, and again, it needs to it needs to show your skill. Either you're working in a company that has maybe 5 to 10 people and you're scheduling meetings, within within that scope, or are you working for an international company that has offices around the world and you're scheduling international meetings? You're working on, you're managing, I want to say, excuse me, you're supporting maybe 10 or 15 executives. So it really needs to be detailed, every bullet. And again, that's how what I do is I flush this out, working with clients, talking to them and finding out, exactly what did they do. And I think a lot of people sell themselves very short. And after I work with them, they realize, wow, I have done all this. And it's going to be more reflective, right, in their LinkedIn and also in their resume. So that's, I think, the hardest part for people. All right. So one of the things I do want to mention for interviews, I'm going to go back just real quick. I just want to mention a couple of things about interviews. Just from my experience when I was a recruiter, I found that people, when they were interviewing, they were not coming across very, they weren't coming across how they want to come across, right? They were thinking, oh, they tell me I know this, I know the position, I know what they're gonna what they need. But what's happening is when they're asking the question and when they're actually trying to say it, it's not coming out the same, right? So I'm always saying, please practice out loud in front of the mirror to other people, and get some sort of feedback. And the number thing also, do mock interviews, right? And I do that with my clients. I find that I find a lot of little nuances that they're not thinking of. Now with people doing the video interviews first, I find that a lot of people are not aware that when they are doing interviews, they're sitting, unfortunately, in a chair that's moving, so that they're kind of moving back and forth, that they don't know that. There is a lot of stuff going on in the background that's distracting, even a ceiling fan. I've had, been in interviews where, I have 2 or 3 people and we're interviewing a candidate, and there's, people walking back and forth in the back. There's a ceiling fan that's kind of moving, clicking. So it's really important that they have to check and make sure the lighting is proper, and just make sure that there's a lot to the interview and not just, I know the answer. And one thing I also want to point out is you have to realize, again, as a recruiter, candidate is just one of the 8 or 10 people interviewing. And you may not even have to be able to meet in person. So you have to stand out, believe it or not. with the other people that are in boxes. So you have to remember, you're just a person in a box, just like all 8 or 10. And what are you going to do to stand out? And this is where I help candidates flush that out and make them stand out. It's important that you come out positive, that you smile. I mean, there's just a lot that people do not think about. They don't know what they look like when they're interviewing. So it's important. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay with time, I hope. Okay. All right. So continuing, as there's a lot of do's. Again, in being a recruiter, I would have a candidate, and in the first interview, felt that person was a great fit. And unfortunately, they didn't do much research in advance. It's really important to do the research of the company, know the values, the mission, know the interviewers. Go in LinkedIn, review their background, find some connection and experience similar to yours. And it really, really helps. And then when you're in the interview, you can, if in the maybe the Q&A or the question section, you can bring up, oh, I noticed, Emily, that you and I have, we went to the same school, and just it really helps to have some sort of a connection, right? Okay. I did see, and I can't remember there was the percentage, and it is true that if you see a position and it's been open, the first week, I would say you want to apply as soon as possible. And because of the process, right? So a recruiter process, they post the role. Well, let me even take a step back. Because it's expensive to post a role, what we do, and I'm going to say we, because I'm putting my recruiter hat on, is that we would open the role, but we wouldn't post it yet. We would ask our employees, right, in the all hands meetings about if anybody has a referral, because referrals, are first. Does anybody have a referral? This is the role. And if we would get, position, people like that, then we'd interview, and the public wouldn't even know that it's open, right? So that's why I also say referrals are important. You want to be top of mind for people because a lot of roles are filled before they even post. But if we don't find a person that way, then we do post the role. And then, hundreds of resumes, they're being, remember, 100 of resumes are being reviewed daily. And then it's important. The next step, of course, is they have to pick, 8 to 10, right? For the first round, the interviewer, the recruiter needs to interview each one, pick 5 or 6 to go on to the second round. So it's really important that you respond quick, right? Because I know that, everything has to be perfect. And I really just want to apply and then also reach out to LinkedIn and research, try to find the people that are in that company and to get to, to reach out and introduce yourself. Okay. And one of the other things I always told my candidates and clients is that in an interview, you have to remember it's, not just skill, right? It's a 50% skill, 50% culture fit. So a lot of it is not in your control, but I'm always telling people, be yourself. Try not to be someone else, right? Because you will work there and, it's important to be yourself and talk about your skills, talk about what you're going to do. I think, again, another thing that I notice is that in cover letters and, talking to people in interview, a lot of people talk about what they want to get out of the company. Oh, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to do that. I can, but you have to remember, you need to talk about what you can do for the company. How are you going to help them get to their bottom line? And I think that is a really critical aspect that people forget is, again, got to think about as a company perspective and a recruiter perspective. How is this person going to help us with our goals and, make revenue? So it is really need to mention in all aspects how you can help the company. And it's a two-way street. When you need to ask the right questions. about culture and expectations. I can't tell you how many people, oh, I want this job, I want to work here. And we get them to that position and the company, and then 6 months later, they're miserable. They didn't research enough about the culture. They really need to think about what they're really looking for. And when I work with my clients, I do an assessment and they fill out, we talk about what really are they looking for? What's their values? What their mission? What kind of position, where they want to be? Because a lot of times people think, oh, I'm going to find my perfect role right out of college. It's not that way. You have to do baby steps to get to what you need to do. And there's certain ways, and that's where, career coaches, help people plan out where they need to go, right? So it's important to, ask the right questions, make sure this is the right company, talk to people in that company and learn about, how they work, what's a day in the life in that position, and make sure that's the right fit. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right, I've already kind of covered the 2-column resume, and I actually have an example. Some people may not know what that is. Can you see it on the right side? I think you can, right? So again, what happens is if it's an old applicant tracking system, all those words just become one big black blob on both sides. And they don't have, they can't respond. So I do say to people, if they really like that resume, keep it. It's one that you would send to somebody like in LinkedIn when you're, introducing yourself and you're talking about yourself, but it's not one that I would apply to, right? I wouldn't put it in an applicant tracking system. Talking about networking a little bit in LinkedIn, I would make sure, when you're clicking on to send an invite, you want to connect with somebody. Don't just send, an invite, because a lot of people get hundreds of them, especially recruiters and people in companies, they get hundreds and hundreds of them. And so it's important that you stand out, and it's important that you could send a personal note. So when you hit yes, you want to connect, it'll say, do you want to send a personal note? Yes, you do want to send a personal note, and you keep it very short and sweet. Oh, I see that you and I went to the same school. I would love to connect, because you want them to accept your invite, right? And the important thing, and why do you want to connect with people in LinkedIn? The more invites you have, the more access you have to other people. And the more people and more companies, right? So that it helps networking. And then, I can talk about a little bit later in terms of reaching out to those people and asking questions about, and I mentioned that already, reaching them out and asking about a certain position that they're in. Like, for example, if they're in the same position that you're looking to do in the future, what's it like? What's the day in the life? Just to get in the feel of that. So just to note, you can't send a personal note on your phone. So if you're going to LinkedIn in your phone and you hit connect, it just automatically sends it for whatever reason. I can only, it's only on your computer. So just be careful when you're doing LinkedIn. I would advise you do it from a computer. Oh, and another big thing is people get excited about a company and they see a bunch of roles that are open and they apply to all of them. I highly recommend you don't do that, because what happens on the other end, all right, so the applicant tracking system has all of the positions, and then you click on the position and then it's all of the resumes. So then it also shows what other roles this person applied to. So you can see that this person applied to, let's say you have a salesperson and they applied to a marketing role and they applied to all these things. It doesn't come across very, very well that this person knows what they want. And it's important that they really just, everyone just applies to roles that they have the skill for. And you don't have to have 100% of the skills. It's important that you at least have, I would say 75%, 60. And again, it depends. If you are networking and you get to know somebody in the company and they like you and they want, they feel that you're a good fit, a lot of that can be, taught. Again, it depends on what is being asked, what requirements. what can be taught and what needs to be brought, already. Okay. It also depends on ramp up. If they have time to train, that's great. But most companies don't have a lot of money and they want people to start, um, with on the ground running. So it's, again, going back, it's important that you just apply to, the roles that are relevant to what your background is. And again, I have a lot of clients and they say, oh, I've applied to hundreds and hundreds of positions. And then when we go through and talk about what positions they applied for, and I look at their resume, a lot of it's not the same, right? So they're applying to roles that they like, I can do that. I mean, how many times we say, oh, I can do that role? But it's not, it has to have, you have to have the background, right? You have to have the skills. Okay. So it's important, not to do that. And we've talked about networking. Again, networking is really, really important. And whether it is going to, an event locally or a job fair or a cocktail or it really is important that networking, right? So it's whether it's in LinkedIn or you go to Eventbrite. During the pandemic, all these meetings and social things were online, which was great because you can go to those and then you can see all the people that attend, and then you can look up their names, which was I was doing, and going into LinkedIn and connecting with people and saying, and that was your connection. I see that you and I were in the same, event, love that, mention something about the background that you like, let's connect. So it's really, really important to build up your connections in LinkedIn. This, I think, is really important because you really want to come to an interview with questions that matter, right? Questions that you can't just Google and find out, right? These are questions, what is the day in the life of, the role? That would be not for the interview, let me say, not for the interview you're interviewing, because hopefully you've done, the research. So when I say if it's the interview for the position, you want to just ask key pointed, maybe about the person, why they came to the company, what drew them about the company. It's really important to, again, ask questions that are going to be, personal more, that you can't just get in from the internet. All right, let's see what else. I just wanted to put that up there because I think when I'm meeting with people, they're kind of, feeling defeated, right? They've applied, they felt like they've done everything. And I think this really makes a good point that it's the defeat itself is important because that makes you stronger, right? It's very important to work through your defeats because it's like you say, you have to have failure to be successful, right? You can't just suddenly become successful. So a very important thing. And that's it. Wanted just to cover all that. And I have a lot more in terms of if anybody has any questions. But I would love that people would, connect with me if they have any particular questions they don't want to put out there. But when I ask me individually, they can connect with me in LinkedIn. Make sure to send a personal note so I can, mention the webinar or how you are connecting. And then I have two people that I think are really important for people who are looking for positions. To connect with these two people in LinkedIn is Jeremy Schiffling. I had the pleasure of working with him when I was a career advisor at Holt International Business School, when I was the career advisor for the Masters of Analytics and MBA students in San Francisco, their campus. He is now a leader in job search and how to, apply, and he's an incredible person to connect in LinkedIn. And then Eric Parker, I think, has some really good takeaways, kind of like cheat sheets for interviews and things like that. So those are just two people I'll quickly. And then in Facebook, there is an Albert's job listing. and referrals group for the San Francisco area. Now they also have, they're trying to open up in different other states, but they're incredible. There are people, there are recruiters, there's coaches in there. There's also, job, a lot of candidates are looking for positions. So you get a lot of advice in there. So that's something I would join if you know of anybody that's looking for positions. So that is it. Anybody have any questions or want to make any points that maybe I forgot? Yes.
Catherine, while maybe our participants are thinking about a few questions, I just wanted to again thank you for obviously sharing your wisdom today, as well as all the tips and tricks. I think I learned so much in the first probably 3 minutes of your presentation. Let's see if I could summarize those correctly. First, there is a very specific discipline, right? If you're looking for opportunities in the job market itself. But what I've walked away with very quickly is the design of your resume is absolutely vital, because in some cases the organizations may have a very antiquated tracking system that it may not look and feel the same way that you submitted it. You have to be very specific on the keywords for the jobs that you're responsible for, because just the order of magnitude and the number of resumes recruiters are going through, spending 69 seconds per resume, they have a very focused lens on what they're looking for. And then, I love the opportunity to hear that referrals are almost a 10-time advantage. So networking and referrals become a key component of your application itself. And then, of course, the walkway was to wear the recruiter's hat, right? To be thinking about what the recruiter is going to need to distinguish yourself among maybe the hundreds or maybe more than 100 individuals applying for the same job. So this is really wonderful information. The other note that maybe I'd ask you to speak to, if you can, was very interesting that organizations are looking at almost a 50-50 split, 50% on job skill and 50% on cultural fit. And if you take a look at what you were teaching us early on in the presentation, if you get down to that point where you distill down to the 10 or 11 out of the 100 and so that are applied, those skill levels most likely are present within what you can do. And now then it becomes really cultural fit. So really doing the homework up front as a potential applicant on the mission and the values of the organization become integral in the several minutes you may have in front of a recruiter. How close did I come with trying to summarize some of the lessons that you were sharing?
That was excellent, actually. I should have you do my presentations.
No.
Catherine, I do have a quick question from someone. So you covered a lot on resumes and you covered a lot on LinkedIn. A lot of times when people are applying for jobs, they're also seeing a request for cover letters. What's the importance of that?
Okay, that is something that's right. So cover letters, I'm kind of on the fence, okay? Because people either like them or hate them.
Yeah, it seems like recruiters either like them or hate them.
Exactly. And let me tell you my experience. Depending on the applicant tracking system, the cover letters can be buried and never read. Okay. So you have to click, click, click to get the cover letter. And, and you would only probably find it if you're on the fence about this person. And you first are looking at the resume and you see things and you're like, this is a potential. And what you have to remember is, and then they click on, and hopefully you're putting the LinkedIn link on your resume. You're clicking on the LinkedIn in hopes to get more information, because remember, in a resume, you're kind of limited to 10 years per page. All right. So you have to be able to summarize it. It really should not be that long, but you can go into LinkedIn and get a lot more, data on that. So anyway, sorry, so cover letters. It can help and it can also hurt you. So it's really, really critical, if you do a cover letter, that it is short and sweet and to the point. I don't, when no one reads it top to bottom, okay, they're again looking for what they're looking for. So I would keep it very short and talk about, why you are a good fit and the requirements that you fit, and a little bit about you, a little personality that, makes you stand out. And I think cover letters are really good for, let's say you're going for a role and you don't have 100% everything, right? And you you have, a certain amount. But again, you want to let them know a little bit about you, your background, and why you feel that you're a good fit. I have seen hiring managers decide to put a person in the interview section, like, literally you're moving, you click, there's buckets, right? In applicant tracking system, there are buckets. You have the people that, that first are applying. And if you see that they're fit, you move it over to hiring manager review. So hiring managers look at and say yes. Then it goes into the bucket of interviewing, first round. Then it goes to second round, third round, and then offer. So that is basically the buckets in the applicant tracking system. Okay. So so cover letters can help. I've had experience both ways that it helped to bring that person to an interview. But then if the cover letter has a lot of errors, maybe doesn't mention the right company, doesn't have the right job title, spelling errors, grammatical, I've seen where they just reject. So that's why I'm on the fence. I would say it's more important to network, to get to know people in the company, but a cover letter, if done well, and again, I do help with my clients with their cover letters. You just don't want it to be the standard cut AI, blurb. It really has to be personalized. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it helped. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah. Any other questions or anything that I can answer?
Kylie and Catherine, I don't see hands being raised. So I think with this, again, Catherine, thank you for sharing your time and your expertise on such an important factor in workforce development. The Chamber is proud to support you as a member. And for those that may not have been able to attend in person, we will be putting this on the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce's YouTube site for further review, and look forward to the next in our series of our BizDev workshops.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you very much for having me.
All right.